And good morning, good morning, good morning. I greet every one of you from all over the world who are here right now watching me. And it's so exciting to be here again with you this Friday. So every Friday, we come to you and we teach you one thing on marriage. And this Friday is not going to be different. We're teaching you one thing on marriage. So, how many of you are excited to be here? Put it there in the comment section that you are excited. Can you hear me? Can you see me? I'm sure you can hear me and see me from all the nations of the world. And I am glad to be here. Have you invited somebody to come and watch this Friday live with you? You are always here. How about your neighbor, your friend, your brother, sister, colleague, church member, association member, old boys, old girls? Invite them right now with this link. Ask them to join, and then, of course, eventually subscribe and click the notification button so that they can get these videos whenever they pop up. So let's dive into it immediately. As usual, we just have 1 hour and we're not going to take more than 1 hour of your time. Today, we're talking about dealing with emotional neglect. Dealing with emotional neglect. Now, in marriage, this is a real thing. Emotional neglect. As a married counselor, I have people come to me virtually every day because I counsel couples every day, all the way from Monday through to Friday. And one of the things that they bring up that is a challenge to them in marriage is emotional neglect. And it's a big challenge. Unfortunately, one spouse may not think that it is serious, while the other spouse feels that that is in fact, that's the most serious thing, especially the wives. Yes, the wives. Because for a woman, emotions is something that is very dear. You know, the greatest need of a woman is attention. And so, if you don't give that attention, that's a problem. That's not to say that men don't need this attention, also, they do. So, it's both ways. Now, we need to understand what we are talking about when we say emotional neglect. So, you need to understand that it is you being or one spouse being unnoticed by the other, one spouse not catching the attention of the other, one spouse not feeling that the other one is sensitive to his or her plight. Sometimes you just need somebody to, you're not really, there's really nothing wrong, but you just need somebody to show you that you are important, someone to show you that you are also a human being. Just basic love, care, affection. Now, when that is not there, that is what we call emotional neglect. And the victim often feels worthless, insecure, has emotional distress, sometimes depressed. And unfortunately, there are many people that are going through emotional neglect in their marriages. And that's why it's important that we bring this topic to the fore so that every one of us can do better. Sometimes it's not that you want to emotionally neglect your wife or emotionally neglect your husband, but there are so many causes, so many things that come in the way and stop you from providing that emotional care, from providing that support, from providing that presence and attention to your spouse. So your marriage may not be bad, because I've seen many people come and they tell me, I don't know why my wife is complaining. Our marriage is good. So why she says we need to come for counseling, I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, our marriage is good. However, the wife is complaining and saying that, but our marriage is not good. And the man says, well, I'm providing everything. I'm giving you everything. I'm working hard. What more do you want? Then the woman will probably, if the communication is good in that marriage, the woman will probably now go back to what I said before, to tell the man that, yeah, I'm happy you're providing, but how about the attention? I feel left out. I was recently, well, not too recently anymore. I was interviewing a very well advanced person in his 70s. And one of the complaints he had was that it looked like everybody had neglected him. In fact, it's not just one person. I've I've counseled several people in their older ages, late 60s, 70s, 80s, especially the men. And they come and they say, I don't know, I did everything. My people have abandoned me. My children don't call me. My wife is no more there. She's always traveling from one omugo to another, one omugo to another, hardly staying at home. And they're quite worried because at that stage in their life, they think it's a stage where they should sit back, kick back, and have a relationship with their wives, be able to sit down and have conversations, because at that point in time, it doesn't matter who you used to be, except you are still a politician. Other than that, everybody actually leaves you alone. Right? Everybody leaves you alone at one point in your life because, in quote, you are no longer relevant. And it's not a bad thing because everybody must grow. The people under you that you even taught and trained and directed, they also are going to grow. So you need to shift away so that they can also shine. Now, when that happens, it is that your wife, that your husband that you're going to fall back to. That's why it's important. The relationship you keep with that person is very, very important, extremely important right now. So, emotional neglect includes a lack of affection, not acknowledging achievements. Let's take the first one: a lack of attention. What emotional neglect is: a lack of attention. A lack of attention means that you don't see the person. A lack of attention means that it doesn't matter what the person does, you can't even see because you are not curious enough to look at the person. When we talk about emotional intelligence, this is where the first part of emotional intelligence comes in: the ability to perceive emotions. There are four components of emotional intelligence: perceiving emotions, reasoning with emotions, understanding emotions, and eventually managing those emotions. So, the first one, which is perceiving emotions, you need to be curious about your spouse to even be able to perceive the emotion. So, if you are not curious, you are going to forget that your spouse is there momentarily. So, no show of affection, a lack of affection. Your spouse, for instance, is um, cutting something. So you've told your husband, you and your husband are in the kitchen, you and your wife are in the kitchen. The man is cutting something, and the knife cuts him, and he shouts, "Oh, ow, yay, whatever." Or being a man, he just says, "Yeah, the man, are you here?" He doesn't, you don't want to show too much, but you had a cut, and then the wife just looks and says, "What's that?" Says, "Oh, I just cut my hand." Say, "Oh, okay, just wrap it up, okay, and let's continue." And that is a lack of affection. Affection will mean being a little bit sensitive to even come and see, to even come and hold the hand, even if you can't do anything about it, but even show that you care. So that you not showing that you care is a big deal for your spouse. So there's a lack of attention. Let's move to the next one. What emotional intelligence, what happens when you have emotional neglect? Not acknowledging achievements. That's number two. Not acknowledging achievements. So this goes a notch higher. When your spouse has done something great, got an award at work, was able to finish writing a book, was able to finish an exam, do you actually acknowledge that achievement? Do you celebrate? Do you let your spouse know that this thing you have done is great? I see it and I appreciate what you have just done for yourself. Do you do that? For some of us, we trivialize some of these achievements. And you see, this cuts abroad, across board. From time to time, you may, and that's why we're bringing this up and we're talking about it so that you can become conscious and not allow your affection to just dwindle away from your spouse. You need to be able to acknowledge every achievement of your spouse. Even a birthday is an achievement. You don't know. You know how many people die before their next birthday. So if your spouse is marking his birthday, her birthday, that's an achievement. You need to acknowledge it. Your spouse has just finished teaching your 2-year-old how to read a book. Don't just say, oh, okay, yes, 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 that's good. No, no, no. Look at him and say, wow, you did this. This is great. Our son can now read. Wow, I'm so happy you did this. You're such a good teacher. Acknowledge the achievements. Now, if you don't, that already constitutes emotional neglect. What else constitutes emotional neglect? Ignoring emotional needs. Ignoring emotional needs. So when you ignore the emotional needs of your spouse, that is also emotional neglect. From time to time, your husband or your wife has a need, has something that he or she wants you to fulfill emotionally, and you are not there. Now, that's a challenge. That's neglect. So let's say your spouse loses someone, and at that point in time, your spouse is mourning, and your spouse needs you at that point in time. Not because when this person dies, then that's the end of the story for your spouse, and your spouse cannot live again. And no, 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 no. But everybody deserves to have that emotional, should we say, emotional meltdown from time to time. And what will help so that that meltdown does not now bring the person into depression is that there is somebody standing beside him or her. Are you that somebody that stands beside your spouse when your spouse is going through something? So when there is a lack, or when you ignore the emotional needs of your spouse feels emotionally neglected. So you've seen it, and that's why I used, someone passing on. For that one, nobody needs to tell you that when someone has passed on the side of your spouse, a relative, a friend, nobody needs to tell you that your spouse needs emotional support. If you need to be told that your spouse needs emotional support, there's a big problem with you. So ask yourself, when my spouse has gone through those emotional roller coasters, have I been there? Or is it that person's friends and other families? Now, this is very, very important for you to note. I want you to understand that if you ignore the emotional needs of your spouse will feel neglected. So don't ignore the emotional needs of your spouse. You need to be there always. You need to be there always. Okay. The next one that constitutes emotional neglect is failing to provide safe space for emotional expression. Failing to provide safe space for emotional expression. Now, what this means is that Sometimes your spouse can't express their emotions outside, maybe because of where, for those of us who have been leaders, it's difficult for you to express your emotions because everybody expects so much from you. So it will be irresponsible, let me use that word, for you to just come out and just express your emotions every time you go through something. I mean, you're a human being. Once in a while, you will actually go through something and then you will need to express it, that emotion. But you can't do it all the time, if you get what I mean. You can't do it all the time. And so it is important to understand that you need a time and a person who you can vent to, who you can emotionally outburst to. Now, if you are not there for your spouse for that emotional outburst, venting, there's a problem. Because your spouse will need to do that, and your spouse needs somebody. So if you are not there, your spouse will find somebody else. That's another big challenge. Your spouse finding somebody else to feel that, so that your spouse can have that safe space, because the safe space means you want to cry. You don't want to be in public. Imagine that you are the president of a country and then every time something happens you cry in public. Every time something happens you cry in public. After a while you will lose the confidence of your people. So it's not that you are not a human being. You're a human being. You have pain, you've gone through something, but you need to be able to comport yourself most times. However, after comporting yourself, you need somewhere where you can come and actually pour out your emotional expression. And that one place is with your spouse. Oh, I remember in the early days of our marriage, and at intervals during our marriage, because of the way I'm wired as a solution provider. And I'm sure I have a weakness here, right? I'm wired as a solution provider. So when there's a problem, instead of dwelling on the problem, I just want to hit the solution so that we don't now make the problem bigger, if you get what I mean. So that's the kind of person, that's how I'm wired. Maybe because of my training in the bank. So we don't have time to sulk over things, because the time you are using to sulk over money that is missing, for instance, so money is missing, you are sulking over it. The person who stole the money is going further and further away and layering it in different layers before, so you don't have that time. You want to quickly nip it in the bud and quickly catch it. When you are done arresting the situation, then you can come back and now start dealing with who caused it, who didn't cause it, and all of that. Now that's the way I was wired. So once she brings up a problem, I'm just solving it. She says, "Oh, this thing happens," I'm just solving it. She says that thing, I'm just solving it. One day she called me and said, "See, I don't need you to sometimes I don't need you to solve the problem. I just need you to even acknowledge that the problem exists and just tell me it's going to be all right. Just tell me, give me words like, 'Don't worry, I'm here for you.' Give me a cuddle. I didn't know, my brothers and sisters. I did. How will I know now? I didn't know. So she was the one who pointed it out. And when she pointed it out, I started becoming better in that place. Am I the best? No, I'm still a I'm still a solution provider. But I try to check myself. And that's why we're giving you this. That's why we're we're showing you this light, so that some of the things you are doing without really knowing that you are causing an issue for your spouse, you can sit up and understand that these are the things that constitute emotional neglect for your spouse. Now, what is the impact of emotional neglect? What impact does it have on the person that is neglected? Let's look at that so that you understand how serious this thing is. Now, the first thing is that they struggle with low self esteem. Low self esteem. So, people who are neglected emotionally don't see themselves as who they are. They see themselves as sometimes even non entities. They see themselves as people who don't deserve to be loved. And that's not a very good thing, because everybody deserves to be loved. Everybody deserves to be shown some affection. But when you neglect your spouse just feels low. You see people when you say come and oversee this thing, they tell you no, I can't. It's not the kind of thing I can do. And it's not that they can't really. It's just that somebody has shown them that they are not worthy. And that's one of the things, that's one of the big impacts of emotional neglect. And it's a very big impact. You are complaining that your spouse has low self esteem. Have you asked yourself if you are the one who is causing that low esteem or adding to it? Yes, you can be the one if you emotionally neglect your spouse. Now, have you invited somebody? Have you sent this link out to somebody? I need you to send this link out to about 10 people so that they can come and listen to what we're saying. Because what we're saying is so germane, what we're saying is so important. What we're saying can actually change the trajectory. There are people who come to me with the I'm tired of this marriage mantra. I can't do it again. I want a divorce. I want to step out of the marriage. I can't continue with this man. I can't continue with this woman. And by the time I'm, you know, counseling them and asking them questions, trying to find out what has brought you to that stage where you feel you can no longer continue, I find out sometimes there is emotional neglect. So it's not as if there's any big issue in the marriage. Well, anyway, emotional neglect is big. But what I mean is that there's no physical abuse, there's no verbal abuse sometimes, there's no irresponsibility, but there is a lack of emotional connection, a lack of emotional affection. So, one of the impacts of emotional neglect is low self esteem. Another one is chronic feeling of emptiness. Chronic feelings of emptiness. So, the person that is neglected feels empty. Remember that everybody has a love tank. I'm sure you've heard me saying this over and over again. Everybody has a love tank that needs to be filled, that deserves to be filled. And if you emotionally neglect a person, automatically that love tank is not being filled. And the tank is meant to be full. So, for a person who is not being shown that emotional care, that person feels empty. And that is one of the, you know, impact of emotional neglect. So you must understand that you don't want your spouse to get to this point where your spouse is feeling empty. Because if your spouse feels empty emotionally, your spouse may look for how to fill up that tank. And then that's when people go into vices, infidelity, drugs, alcoholism, all kinds of physical abuse on themselves. And you're wondering where this is coming from. Nobody feels that emotional tank for them, that love tank. The next one is difficulty in forming healthy relationships. Difficulty in forming healthy relationships. So when people are emotionally neglected, they can't form other relationships. The one relationship that should help them, that's married, that should help them, is not helping them. So because already they have low self-esteem, they feel empty. So they're not able to make friends. That's what we're talking about. They can't make friends. So they come into a circle. There's a conference, they can't make friends because they just feel there's this thing of, oh, nobody loves me, nobody cares for me, so why should I? There's no need. Let me just go my way. Let me just do this conference and walk away. Let me just go to church and walk away. Yeah, you know those people. Are you one of them? You just go to church and walk away. Once service is ended, they just say the grace. You are already running out of church. In fact, while they are saying the grace, you are running out as if there is a dynamite. You are running out and running to your car and zoom, you're off. One of the reasons is that there's emotional neglect. There is also anxiety. That's the fourth one. Anxiety. So people who are emotionally neglected experience anxiety. They're always anxious. Their heart is always beating. They're always wondering, hey, what have I done wrong now? Have I done the right thing? Because they're looking for validation. So anxiety becomes a thing. So at every point in time, they're anxious. And anxiety is not very good for your heart. Always being anxious. Yeah, your heart is overworking. Your kidneys are overworking. Your liver is overworking. You know, some of the issues that we have with body systems that people are having, you notice that nowadays you see people, young people in their 30s, in their 40s, having kidney failure, liver issues. Some of the causes, especially of kidney failure, and I'm sure the doctors are here will tell you, stress. Anxiety can cause stress. So you see that all these things work together and can mess up a person. That's why you must be curious. You must pay attention. You must show affection to your spouse. This is very important. In fact, this is too important. Another one is depression, passive, pervasive sense of inadequacy. These things all come together and occur to a person that is emotionally neglected. Okay, emotionally neglected. This is very, very important. Now, of course, this emotional neglect that we're talking about can be worked on. You can heal from it. And we want to start looking at the ways that you can pull yourself out of emotional neglect. Now, I'm talking to you who is emotionally neglected. How can you help yourself? What are the things that you can do before even your spouse does something? Of course, ultimately, your spouse is the one who is responsible for that emotional neglect. So your spouse needs to actually do something. But before, while waiting for your spouse to do something, let us look at what you can do. Then we can now look at what your spouse will do. So we're going to be looking at some things that you can do to help pull yourself and heal from emotional neglect. I'm sure you want to hear what those things are. And we're going to be taking a short water break now. And immediately after this, we will come back and tell you what you need to do. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Invite your friends and family, and let's take this water break. Right, all right, all right. We are back, and I hope you were able to refresh yourself in this short time that we had that break. And you are welcome back to this beautiful topic that we are taking: how to deal with dealing with emotional neglect. Did you see that advert? Yes. So I want to say congratulations to all of you who caught up with the flash sale of my two new books, What Your Spouse Is Not Telling You and Marriage Stories. So those two new books, we had a pre-order on Monday the 5th, where the book price was slashed for 25% or of by 25%, but just for 24 hours. And some of you quickly keyed in and you saved a huge chunk of 4,000 naira catching that flash sale. Is there anybody here who caught the flash sale? If you caught the flash sale, just say it. I caught the flash sale. And I'm so glad, and congratulations to you. And thank you to all of you who caught that flash sale. We've moved from the flash sale time now to the pre-order time. So from now till the launch date, which is 23rd. So from now to 22nd, sorry, from now till 22nd, we are on the pre-order. So instead of getting the two books for 16,000 naira at the pre-order, you get it for 14,000 naira. The flash sale was 12,000 naira, so you missed it. So now we're at the pre-order stage. It is just 14,000 naira, right now, at the pre-order stage. So you want to quickly catch it. Don't do the same thing you did and miss the flash sale because you heard of it. When something told you, I'll do it, I'll soon do it, and then you forgot. I know. Because immediately after, the next day, people were now coming and now trying to pay, and unfortunately, it was over for the flash sale. Okay, so they had to pay the pre-order price. So don't do the same thing. Don't make the same mistake. Ensure that you catch up with the pre-order so that you don't wait till it's 16,000. So get it now, the two books together at 14,000 naira instead of getting it at 16,000 naira. And these two books are wonderful books. The first one, What Your Spouse Is Not Telling You, is a complete book on communication in marriage. It is the A to Z of communication in marriage. We cover things like convincing your spouse. We cover things like what your spouse actually is not saying, why your spouse is not talking. We cover things like even conflict resolution. So it's so wide. It covers everything. We taught in that book. I wrote about what to communicate, when to communicate, and how to communicate. Very important three elements of communication, and a host of other things. So you want to grab that book. It will really turn your marriage around. And then the second one is Marriage Stories. Yes, Marriage Stories is the relaxation book. The other one is a serious book, but Marriage Stories is the relaxation book where you get to just read stories on marriage that I created. So I created fictional stories addressing real life situations. But there's one true story there, I mean, completely true, with true names. And that is the story of how I met my beautiful wife, Wendy Ologe. Yes, the story of how we met and decided to get married and then eventually got wedded. That story is one of the stories in the book, and a host of other marriage stories that you will really enjoy. So it will entertain you, but it will educate you also. And that's the whole essence. So please get these two books and it will do you good. Now let's go back to what we were talking about: healing from emotional neglect. So, how do you heal from emotional neglect? Now, one of the first things you want to do is recognize the problem. You want to recognize the problem. There are a lot of people who don't acknowledge that they are being emotionally neglected in their marriage. In fact, when you bring up the topic, they tell you, no, 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 my husband is doing well, my wife is doing well. So they shy away from it and they're in denial. One of the first things you need to do is, you see, when you have a problem, when you have a marital problem, let me teach you this now. When you are not okay in your marriage, you feel that your marriage is not giving you joy because you are supposed to be happier in marriage than you were before marriage. If you were happier as a bachelor, as a spinster, than as a married person, your marriage already has a problem. I'll say it again. Please listen to me. And listen very carefully. I'm talking to everybody that is listening to me. If you are married and you are not as happy as how you were, or even happier, you're supposed to be happier, you are not happier than how you are as a bachelor or as a spinster, your marriage has a big problem. I need you to understand this. So, one of the things you want to do when you are not feeling happy in your marriage, you're hoping and wishing that you could go back to bachelorhood or spinsterhood. Sit down with a pen and write down what you are not happy about. Because people come to me for counseling, and hey, everybody comes to me for counseling. So people come to me for counseling, and when I'm asking them what the problem is, sometimes it's difficult for them to put it together because they've never really given it a thought. And when I say a thought, they've never sat down, pen on paper, to say, what exactly am I going through? So I have to first help them to bring out what the problem is. Yes. So sometimes for 30 minutes, 1 hour in a counseling session, I'm trying to help them to even know to identify what the problem is. So the first thing you want to do when you feel emotionally neglected is recognize that there's a problem, acknowledge it, identify it, write it down. What kind of emotional neglect? Write it down. This is very important. The next thing you want to do after recognizing it and writing it down is that you want to seek professional help. You want to seek professional help. If you are emotionally neglected, please and please listen to me, because I deal with a lot of cases of infidelity due to emotional neglect. And anytime we talk about infidelity, you always think it's the men, right? You don't know how many women actually go through infidelity also. So it's not only the men. The women also go through infidelity. But because for men, infidelity has been wrongly accepted by society. So when a man is unfaithful, you hear things like, maybe it's a mistake now, they just brush it aside. So because of that, men kind of are more open about it. Women, on the other hand, are very closed about it because the society frowns on it. And I wonder why. Infidelity is infidelity. That was why that woman that they came and they accused and they wanted to stone her and they brought her to Jesus' feet. And they say, okay, this woman, we caught her in adultery and want to stone her to death. Jesus bent down, wrote something on the sand, looked up and said to them, he who is without sin, cast the first stone. And he bent down again and continued writing in the sand. And the Bible tells us that everybody, one by one, they dropped the stone they wanted to, because all of them were guilty of one issue or the other. So they dropped the stones and started walking away. And he looked up and asked the woman, are all your accusers gone? And the woman said, yea, Lord, they are gone. He said, well, if they don't find anything with you, me too, I don't find anything with you. Go and sin no more. So everybody has, a lot of people, let me not generalize, a lot of people, both men and women, are involved. And I wonder why they were accusing that woman, because that woman, was she not doing the adultery with a man? Why were they stoning the woman? Why were they not stoning the man? That's society for you. So there are a lot of women who, out of emotional neglect, are looking for somebody to just talk to. And they now first start talking to a person. Let me show you how it moves. They start talking to the person. So maybe the person is a co-worker or a church member or an old friend or somebody they just met. They start talking to the person because the person will listen. And from talking to the person, they build an emotional connection with the person. That's already micro cheating. So you're already emotionally cheating with the person. And then from there, for some, they now graduate to actual physical intimacy with the person. That's how it moves. So instead of talking to just anybody, please, if you feel emotionally neglected, come and speak to a professional counselor. Sometimes what I'm doing in counseling is I'm listening to people pour out their emotions that they cannot pour out to their husbands or to their wives because that person is not there emotionally. So I help them to allow them to pour it so that they can at least say it out how they feel. And then they feel a little bit better when they, at least a human being, another human being has heard. But remember, this is a professional who is not going to now advise you to do the wrong thing. The professional won't tell you, for instance, oh, carry your bag and leave the house, scatter the marriage. No, no, we don't do that. We look for a way to make things work, give you advice and direction so that you can take a decision, because at the end of the day, you, the person coming for counseling, you are the one who is going to take the decision. Ours is to help you see perspectives so that you can choose your decision, and then we give you some direction on what we think you should do. So please, when you feel emotionally neglected, don't speak to friend, pastor, family members, because all these people may be biased and they may give you advice that will crumble your marriage that actually should not crumble. I was telling somebody the other day, I said, most people who say they are getting divorced because of unreconcilable differences, it's not true. They're actually getting divorced because they have refused, either both of them or one of them has refused to reconcile the differences. So if you don't reconcile the differences, then of course they won't be reconciled. So one person or both people per time must reconcile differences. So seek professional help. Number 3, build emotional awareness. Build emotional awareness. You see, this is where emotional intelligence comes. Because the more emotionally intelligent you are, the better you are at managing the emotions you go through. So that you don't go just through the emotions just anyhow, and then you are feeling overwhelmed, and then so build emotional awareness. How do you do this? Do a lot of listening to yourself. Listen to yourself, very important. You see, there's listening to your spouse, there's also listening to yourself. That's why I said some people they can't identify what it is they are going through. They just feel they're going through a wrong emotion, a negative emotion, but they can't identify it because they've not learned to listen to themselves. So listen to yourself. Are you hearing that for the first time? Listen to yourself. Take notes on what you are saying inside your mind. That's one step. The next thing you want to do is that you want to do things like listening to music, praying, creating an environment for yourself where you can start rebuilding your emotions. This is very important, extremely important, and you must ensure that you do these things. The next thing you want to do is that you want to establish healthy boundaries. You want to establish healthy boundaries. Now, you need to be able to draw the line so that your spouse doesn't take you down emotionally. One of the ways of establishing boundaries is communicating. Let me challenge everyone who is listening to me right now. Many people don't actually communicate their needs with their spouses. Many people don't communicate their needs to their spouses, and they expect that their spouses know. Yes, I agree with you. Your husband, your wife should actually know what you are going through. But if the person genuinely doesn't know, and this happens, you think the person knows, the person is thinking of something else. So the person is not really there aware. But if you tell the person, that's a boundary setting. Because that way the person will not continue doing whatever he or she is doing, or will not neglect you again, because you have created that boundary to say, hello, you are neglecting me. I can't hear from you again. Where are you? Who are you? So you need to understand that you need to set boundaries, and one of the ways of setting boundaries is communicating. That's why your communication must be top notch in your marriage. You see, if you don't get that book, why your spouse, I mean, what your spouse is not telling you, you're going to be missing a lot, because it's going to show you things that you didn't even know. Every time people come to me for counseling, they leave telling me that there's so many things that I didn't know. I mean, I'm hearing this for the first time. You hear people saying, I'm just hearing this, coach. You said this is what I should do, or you said this is what is happening. I'm hearing this for the very first time. So that's why it is important for you to please communicate with your spouse. All right. What next? You need some self compassion and self care. So, what are those things that will make you feel happy? Self compassion, self care. Listen to music. Go and watch a movie. Go and do bungee jumping. Is there anybody here who has that heart? Go and do something exciting. Make yourself feel happy. Because as you do these things, you will eventually realize that your heavy heart begins to soften. Now, these are a few things that you can do. Now, how about your spouse? Again, before your spouse can do something, you must be able to communicate to him or her. You must be able to tell him, this is what I am going through. This is what I am feeling. Sometimes people come to counseling to do that. They've not been able to tell their spouse because they don't have that safe space emotionally to tell their spouse alone. So some people feel that if I just tell my spouse that I'm emotionally down or I'm emotionally neglected, my spouse may not take it well, may not understand. We may start arguing, and at the end of the day, we won't achieve anything. I'll still feel as bad. So they book a counseling session, invite their spouses to come, and then at the counseling session, they're able to bear their minds. Remember, at the counseling session, there's a third person, a professional, who will help to mediate that conversation, mediate between both the husband and the wife, and midwife the conversation. So the counselor is not his job is not there in this particular scenario. His job is not there to even teach them anything. It's just to provide that environment where husband and wife can talk to each other without arguments or shouting on each other, because many times when husband and wife don't have very good communication, they end up shouting on each other when they're supposed to have conversations. So if only they can have conversation, and that's where the counselor comes in. So the counselor comes in, sits down, and helps both of you to have conversations that has been difficult. There are some people who will tell me after a counseling session that we've been trying to have this conversation for 10 years. We've been trying to have this conversation for 20 years. And thank you, sir. You just helped us have this conversation in an hour, 30 minutes. We were able to say our minds without fighting, and we're able to live. That's the more important thing. We're able to live with steps to move forward. So if you are having that kind of situation where you have emotional neglect and you cannot, or you feel that talking to your spouse about it will not make headway because you guys are always arguing, please come for counseling. To book for a counseling session, there are numbers that are scrolling on your screen. Just reach out to any of those numbers and just say counseling. If you reach out on WhatsApp to any of the numbers that are on your screen, you say counseling, they will get back to you and give you all the details, give you the dates that are available so that you can actually choose for, and book. Please don't shy away from counseling. I've always said this. Counseling is not a death sentence. Counseling does not mean you have gone cuckoo. counseling is just a way of allowing you to have the conversations that you and your spouse are supposed to have normally. That's what counseling does for you. And that's what I do every weekday. From January till date, I've done over 97, almost 100 now. Maybe even over 100. Yeah, I think I've done over 100 counseling sessions. So where are you in there? That's just to show you how many people are coming. So it's not somewhere that crazy people go. No, it's a place that people go to get help. So stop being in that marriage. It always pains me when people come after 20 years, 30 years, 40 years in some cases, and they've had those problems for that long, and they're just coming for counseling for the first time. And then sometimes people cry at my counseling table, especially men. You'll be shocked. Yes, men cry because they just wonder that, wow, so this thing that I've gone through, and because men don't show emotions all the time, so the men may be going through this emotional neglect. They're going through something, they're not able to show it, so they, for the first time, they're able to express themselves in counseling, and then they find a solution, and then they cry because they're wondering, so you mean I suffered 20 years for nothing? So you mean I took this thing? A man told me once that every time I'm coming home, my heart is beating. I don't know what I'm coming to meet at home. But this thing had a solution, and I didn't know. And I've just been struggling all these years. I think that particular man had been married for over 20 years. Please come for counseling. Help your marriage. Your marriage can be salvaged. It doesn't matter what point your marriage is now. Your marriage can be salvaged. I've been privileged to counsel people who are on the verge of this divorce. Some of them have even put in the documentation for divorce, and then somebody directs them to me. We sit down, have the first conversation, second conversation, and they realize, oh my God, we don't really need a divorce. We just need a direction. So you don't need a divorce. You need a direction. You don't need a divorce. You need a direction. And this is where we'll be rounding up for today. And I hope that you got something. I hope that something sparked up inside you that will help you emotionally to come out of that quagmire you are in. It will help you. So please ensure you implement the things that we have said. Ensure that you get happy with yourself. You shouldn't say stay sad. And ensure that you are able to tell your spouse that this is what I am going through. So that you can tell your spouse, let's go and seek help. Can both of us go and see the counselor? So that the counselor can direct us and tell us how we can regain this emotional connection, the intimacy in marriage. All right. So as I round up, please remember to grab your copies, pre-order. Well, not grab your copies yet. Copies are going to be out on the 23rd. So my birthday is on the 23rd of this month, and that is when officially these books will be launched and be available for pickup. So on that 23rd, the books will be available in Abuja for pickup on 23rd. Other states, of course, the books will start moving to other states on that same day. So I'm sure in 2-3 days it would have reached there. The book will also start moving to the diaspora, people who are, those of you who are in the UK, US, Canada, Australia. The books will also start moving that way on that 23rd. So of course, give it maybe about a week or so that I can get to the destinations, and then you can pick up the copies that you have pre-ordered. So pre-order today, it will help your life. Then we have a course that is happening in June. This course is anger management in marriage. How do you handle your own anger and your spouse's anger? For some of you, your spouse is too hot. When there's a problem, your spouse is blowing so much anger. Everybody is shouting all around. Those things can be managed. You don't need to turn your house into a place of shouting. Your house can be a place of peace. And we're going to be teaching you in this course. And this course is going to hold on the 27th to the 28th of June. So ensure that you register for this course. The registration details are there on the flyer. You get the early bird fee of 15,000 naira right now instead of 20,000 naira I don't know when the team said that registration, but I know it's just this early bird fee is probably just for this month. Once we get into June, so by the 31st of May, early bird of 15,000 naira ends, and then you start paying 20,000 naira instead of 15,000 naira. So come for this course. You know that all the courses we give you at the Marriage Seal Academy always change your life. There's nobody that I know that attends our course unless you are not attentive. But if you attend our course, your life must change. That's what we're here to do. So it's been so good having every one of you here. Please pre-order the books so that you can get it at this discounted rate. The details are there on your screen. The numbers that you should send to are there on your screen. Send a chat to that number and you get all the details that you need on that pre-order. So it's been so nice having every one of you here. God bless you. See you again next Friday when we will be here again teaching you something on marriage. Please enjoy.